My name is Michael Torres, and I'm 35 years old. 2 months ago, I buried my wife Emily while her parents planned to strip me of everything she'd left behind. Today, they're begging me to share the fortune they never knew existed, while I honor Emily's final wish, to make sure they never see a penny of her real legacy. Let me explain how we got here. I met Emily at a terrible point in both our lives. I was working as a bartender in San Francisco, barely making rent after my startup had failed spectacularly. She was sitting at the bar, crying into a martini at 3 p.m. on a Tuesday. "Bad day?" I asked, sliding her a tissue. "Bad life," she replied. "Just got disowned for the 3rd time this month." Emily came from the Ashford family, old San Francisco money, the kind with buildings named after them and portraits in museum wings. Her parents, Richard and Patricia Ashford, had her life planned from birth. Private schools, Stanford, marriage to someone from their social circle, charitable boards, and children to continue the dynasty. Emily had other plans. She was brilliant, MIT graduate, computer engineering genius. But she wanted to build things, not just inherit them. Her parents saw her career as an amusing phase before she settled down properly. "They cut me off again," she told me that first day. Apparently, working at a startup instead of joining the family foundation is beneath an Ashford. We bonded over our failures, our dreams, and our complicated relationships with money. I'd grown up with none, she'd grown up with too much, and we both knew it didn't solve the problems that mattered. We started dating against every odd. Her parents were horrified. I wasn't just wrong for their daughter, I was aggressively wrong. Mexican-American, working class, a failed entrepreneur turned bartender. Patricia literally had me investigated, hoping to find something criminal. "He's nobody." I overheard her tell Emily at a family dinner I wasn't supposed to attend. "His family are immigrants. His father drives a truck. This rebellion has gone far enough." Richard was more direct. He offered me $50,000 to disappear. When I refused, he offered $100,000. When I told Emily, she laughed for the first time in weeks. "Only $100,000? I'm insulted. I'm worth at least $250,000 in disappearing money." We eloped 6 months later. Her parents didn't just boycott the wedding. They announced Emily's death to their social circle, complete with donations to charity in her memory. We found out when one of Emily's cousins called to offer condolences. "I'm dead to them," Emily said, trying to sound like she didn't care. "Good. Now I can actually live." She threw herself into her work, joining a small AI startup called NeuralNext as their lead engineer. The pay was terrible, the hours were worse, but she lit up talking about their projects. I supported us with bartending and freelance coding, watching her become the person she'd always wanted to be. The Ashfords reached out exactly twice in our first 3 years of marriage. Once when Richard had a mild heart attack, they wanted Emily to know she was still out of the will. Once when Patricia's sister died, they wanted to make sure Emily wouldn't embarrass them by attending the funeral. "They're consistent," Emily said. "I'll give them that." Then 2 things happened that changed everything. First, Emily got sick. What started as fatigue became fainting spells, then seizures. The diagnosis was a rare brain tumor, operable but complicated. We were looking at multiple surgeries, experimental treatments, and astronomical medical bills. Second, NeuralNext got acquired by Google. The timing was surreal. On Monday, Emily was in the hospital getting her first surgery scheduled. On Friday, she was on a conference call about her stock options. As an early employee and lead engineer, she had significant equity. The acquisition valued her shares at $18 million. "Don't tell anyone," she said from her hospital bed. "Not yet. I need to think." The next few weeks were a blur of medical procedures and legal documents. Emily's surgeries went well initially, but the tumor was aggressive. Between treatments, she worked with lawyers to structure her assets. That's when she told me her plan. "The acquisition money is going into a trust," she explained. "But not the one my parents would expect." She created 2 separate estates. The visible one, our house, savings accounts, her car, about $800,000 in liquid assets, would go through standard probate. The invisible one, the NeuralNext shares, would transfer differently. "The shares are going to vest over 3 years," she explained. "But there's a clause. If I die, they immediately vest to my designated beneficiary. Not my estate. Not subject to probate. Direct transfer." "Emily, we should tell your parents you're sick." "No," she said firmly. "They made their choice. They killed me off years ago. Let me stay dead." But word got out. San Francisco society is small, and Emily's illness became gossip. Suddenly, the Ashfords remembered they had a daughter. Patricia showed up at the hospital with flowers and tears. "My baby," she cried. "How could you not tell us?" Richard followed with lawyers. "We need to ensure your assets are properly protected," he said. "The family trust." "I have my own lawyers," Emily said weakly. "But thank you for finally caring." They came every day after that, playing devoted parents. Other visitors bought the act, but I saw the calculations in their eyes. They'd check Emily's monitors like stock tickers, hover when nurses discussed treatment costs, and step out for whispered phone calls about estate planning. Emily saw it too. "They're not here for me," she said one night. "They're here for the money they think I have." "The house is worth a lot," I pointed out. "The savings." "Exactly what they'd expect from a software engineer," she smiled. "Comfortable, but not excessive. They have no idea about Next. The acquisition was kept quiet, and I was careful with the paperwork. She made me promise to let them have the visible estate if she died. "Don't fight them," she said. "Let them think they've won. The real money, our money, is safe. Use it to build something good. Something they'd hate." Emily died on a Thursday morning, holding my hand and smiling about a joke only we understood. Her parents, who'd been absent for 5 years, sobbed dramatically in the hallway. The funeral was a production. The Ashfords spared no expense, finally claiming Emily as their daughter. Patricia gave a eulogy about reconciliation and family bonds. Richard spoke about carrying on the Ashford legacy. They reburied the daughter they'd declared dead years ago, this time in the ground. I grieved quietly, planning to honor Emily's wishes. Let them have the house, the savings. I had our memories and the future she'd secured. But the Ashfords weren't satisfied with quiet victory. 2 weeks after the funeral, they ambushed me. I came home to find them in my living room with 2 lawyers and a stack of documents. "We need to discuss Emily's estate," Richard announced, as if I was an employee being terminated. "She had a will," I said. "I'm the beneficiary." Patricia laughed, an ugly sound. "A will written under duress. A sick woman manipulated by her husband. You were just a phase in her life," she hissed, sliding papers across the table. "A rebellion against her family. Sign it all over, or we'll prove you manipulated her. Married her for money. Isolated her from her loving family." "Loving family?" I couldn't help but laugh. "You disowned her. You held a memorial service while she was alive." "A misunderstanding," Richard said smoothly. "We have witnesses who'll testify about our reconciliation. How we rushed to her side when she was ill. How you tried to keep us away." I looked at the papers. They wanted everything. The house, the savings, even her personal belongings. The grief morphed into cold anger, but I remembered Emily's words. Let them think they've won. "Fine," I said, picking up the pen. Their lawyers looked shocked. Patricia's eyes narrowed with suspicion. "You're agreeing?" Richard asked. "Just like that. I don't want to fight," I said truthfully. "Emily wouldn't want that. Take it all. I just want to move on." I signed every document, legally transferring the entire visible estate to them. $800,000 in assets, gone with a few signatures. They could barely contain their glee. "We'll give you 30 days to vacate the house," Patricia said magnanimously. "And Michael? Don't think about contesting this later. We have resources you can't imagine." "I'm sure you do," I said mildly. "Are we done?" They left with their lawyers, probably congratulating themselves on their easy victory. I sat in the empty house, looking at Emily's picture, and whispered, "Just like you planned, baby." The next morning, I called my lawyer, not about the estate, but about a new venture. Using my savings and life insurance payout, I founded the Torres Foundation, focused on providing scholarships for first-generation college students in STEM fields. Emily would have loved the irony. For 2 months, the Ashfords enjoyed their victory. They sold the house quickly, liquidated the savings, and divided Emily's belongings with clinical efficiency. Patricia donated Emily's clothes to charity, making sure to get a tax receipt. Richard sold her car and invested the proceeds. They acted like they'd won the lottery. Then Next announced their 3-year earnout was accelerating due to exceptional performance metrics. The news made tech headlines. Early employees would receive their full payouts immediately. That's when Richard Ashford, doing his due diligence on his daughter's estate, discovered Emily had been employee number 7 at Next. The call came at 9 p.m. "We need to talk," Richard said, his voice tight with barely controlled rage. "About what?" I asked innocently. "Don't play games. Emily's shares in Next. The acquisition. Where is the money? What money? I said. You have all her assets. I signed them over, remember? The startup shares weren't in the estate, he snarled. $12 million, and they transferred directly to you. That's fraud. That's theft. That's the beneficiary designation Emily filed, I corrected. Completely legal. The shares were never part of her estate. We'll sue, Patricia screamed in the background. You manipulated her. You stole from her family. You mean the family that disowned her? I asked. The one that held a memorial service while she was alive? That family. We'll destroy you, Richard threatened. We'll take everything. You already did, I said. Remember? I have nothing. You made sure of that. The shares were Emily's to designate, and she designated them to me. Case closed. They tried everything. Lawyers who found the paperwork ironclad. Private investigators who found nothing but a grieving widower. Media pressure that backfired when reporters discovered the Ashfords had disowned their daughter for marrying outside their class. The lawsuit they filed was dismissed with prejudice. The judge, reading about their memorial service for their living daughter, was visibly disgusted. You abandoned your daughter in life, she said. You don't get to claim her in death. The best part came when they tried to shame me publicly. Patricia gave an interview to the Society pages about how I'd stolen their daughter's legacy. It prompted Emily's former colleagues to speak up about how the Ashfords had treated her, how they'd tried to control her, how she'd been happier without them. One of Emily's cousins even provided photos from the memorial service they'd held, complete with date stamps showing Emily was alive and well at the time. The scandal destroyed what was left of their reputation. I used the money exactly as Emily wanted. The Torres Foundation has sent 200 kids to college so far. I bought the bar where we met and turned it into a co-working space for young entrepreneurs. Every project, every investment, is something the Ashfords would despise, supporting immigrants, funding inappropriate careers, helping kids escape their families' expectations. Last month, on the anniversary of Emily's death, I received a letter from Patricia. No lawyers this time, just a handwritten note begging for help. The scandal had cost them everything. Richard's health had deteriorated. Their society friends had abandoned them. Could I find it in my heart to share Emily's legacy? I wrote back with a photo from the Torres Foundation's latest graduation ceremony. 50 first-generation students heading to grad school, fully funded. Emily's legacy is being shared, I wrote. Just not with you. They wanted the $800,000 they could see, blind to the millions they couldn't. They got exactly what they deserved, the scraps of a life they'd never bothered to understand. Emily knew they'd come for the money. She also knew they'd never think to look deeper, to value what really mattered. They saw her career as a phase, her marriage as rebellion, her life as something they owned. She left them the empty house they'd forced her to flee. She left me the future they'd tried to deny her. My name is Michael Torres. I'm 35 years old. I loved a woman whose parents only remembered she existed when she was dying. They fought for her visible assets while the real fortune, the one built on work they'd dismissed, passed to the man they'd tried to buy off. Now I build the world Emily wanted to see, while they live with the knowledge that their daughter's husband controls the fortune they killed their relationship to claim. Emily always said the best revenge was living well. Turns out, it's even better when you're living well with $12 million your in-laws didn't know existed. Thanks for watching. See you again in the next video. Stay stunned.